Okay, this live video. That car just went over the curb. And I'm doing this because of an area over there that I'll show in a moment. But what I wanted to point out before that is this is a wonderful example of short-term gratification that urban Americana have. When I say Americana, I mean United States and Canada, have emphasized on in the horticultural world that is not best for the long term, but really good for profit. This is a Calgary pear, meaning produces big flowers and little fruits. It has wonderful white flowers in the mid-spring and red fall color. And, there's not a lot that's red or orange in the fall. Most things are either no fall color or yellow. And transplants easily. It's medium fast growing, I think. But the problem is it's not native and it has very narrow crotches. Now, when you're talking about plants, trees, a crotch is the area where the trunk meets a branch. If it's a narrow crotch, means it's really close upright. If it's a wide crotch, means it's wider like this one here. Now, the reason why that matters is as the tree ages, the fibers inside expand on either side of the branch. But if it's narrow, eventually they're not fully connecting. They're just, this is growing, and there isn't a real connection in there. The connection is farther down. So when the weight gets too much on this, there's not a whole lot holding it to the main stem. That's why, especially with fruit trees, it's important to have wide crotches. That way, over time, it can hold weight, because if you have a fruit tree, the branches are going to be way down with the heavier fruit. And if not, then it will snap or all kinds of other problems. Well, I'll just brief that quicker. Anyhow, looking up at this tree, this Calgary pear, planted short-term gratification, but it wasn't trimmed right. It says here, the stub. How is this going to heal? This tree is going to expand this branch is going to expand this way each year. But how long is it going to take the fibers in this softwood, the hardwood and the softwood, to grow around this big stub? That's going to take a while. So this is a big open wound, a possible place for insects, fungus, bacteria to get in and damage the tree. Now, Calgary pear is in the rose family, and the rose family is one of the biggest families of plants. So therefore, there's a lot of diseases that it can get, and different parts of cedar apple rust that can affect crab apples, and it can affect hawthorns, and it can affect a couple other ones. So the bigger the family, the more diseases are possible to catch, which is why I focus on the smaller families, like the soapwort family, the witch hazel family, stuff like that. And you invest your time and money into that, and you're less likely to have problems. But at the same time, for the better of the ecosystem, the oak, willow, and cherry, rose family have the most amount of uh, butterfly host plants. That's important because you got to feed you know the caterpillars in order to feed the birds, down the line. But anyhow, this is a very typical of uh, people that don't have long-term investments into the community or into the project. It's short-term gratification. You a lot of this is a problem with the landscape world. A lot of the people that work in it, they'll put in a bid, they'll come do the work, they'll get paid, and they'll leave and disappear. Now, about 10 years ago, I tried to change that. And what I started off, well, it was like the third year in my business, I started off by saying that I would only ask for 70% of the final bill of the project. And then I'd ask for another 10% the next year, another 10% the second year, and then the last 10% 5 years later. That way it would be an incentive to someone to choose me over someone else because I don't fully get paid right away. And that idea I thought would work, but apparently it didn't. A few customers just, rabbits ate this, or they didn't like this or that, and they just didn't pay me the next 10%. But anyhow, that was my idea, to try to convince customers to trust me. But I should have signed a contract or something because I trusted them when they didn't trust me. But anyhow, that's the problem with the landscape world today. So, this tree, this is at the Bradley Library. And this was not the right tree to plant in this area. It was easy to whoever planted these to get paid. And the first, 2, 5, 8 years, whatever, it looked nice. But because they're not being trimmed right, it's not the best use of your tax money. Underneath, they got rock bed. It looks like they probably got a weed in it because I only see weeds coming up along the edges or where there's a lot of organic debris. Daylilies, which are, to me, the same as boulders. There's no ecological value for them, and you can run over them and they're still fine. And this here is a low grow sumac. It's a cultivar of the fragrant sumac. Now, fragrant sumac isn't native to Kankakee County, but it is native to the Midwest. So I can't call it a non-native. At the same time, it's apparently been documented, but only once I've seen it, volunteer naturalize in this county. So, not a big deal. The only problem is there's no genetic diversity because it's a cultivar. So if a disease comes or it doesn't provide the same nectar pollen value that the rest of them do, which we don't know because that concept is up in the air. It is up in the air on whether cultivars of natives, or the term they use with navitars, are just as beneficial to the ecosystem or less. It's up in the air because, every plant of a species isn't necessarily as beneficial as the other one. And if you select it just for the physical appearance, not for its pollen or nectar or other values, then you're reducing its value. to the ecosystem, not to the value of the visually only consumer. Anyhow, so there's a low growth sumac right under here, and you can see this is a Calgary pear, volunteered from this tree, and the people that are maintaining this landscaping don't know how to recognize that this is not this. So they trimmed this. Now, because they just trimmed it, it's going to branch off, and after branching off, but not being removed, it's going to spend more energy in making a root system down there. And if it keeps being done like that, it's going to not only take energy from the low growth sumac, but also be harder to remove because it's still getting fuel. And that's what you want to prevent. You don't want the weeds, whether it's a tree, a herb, or whatever, to get more fuel, because that just helps it stay where it's at. And then over here, you can see this is either a Siberian elm or a hybrid elm that's seated up in here. See, the rocks need to be moved away, and that needs the crown, meaning where the branches meet the root system, needs to be removed. That's how you get rid of it. And this here, this is probably either well, I can't just throw it out there, because it could be it's gotten shaded out from the branches of this. It could have been sloppy herbicide. It could have been salt. I don't know for sure why all this is dead. But this whole scenario, well, not all the scenario, but most of the characteristics of this landscaping are not good. They're not positive. So there's all kinds of problems that could come. Now look at here. See this rotten? That's not healthy. You know, this is not a healthy base. I should probably quit talking about that, because the purpose of me even turning on this phone was to go over here and talk about this spot. Now, about 8-10 years ago, something like that. I don't know how long it was existing before I saw it, but when I saw it, I was, happy to see that there were native plants here, but knew that they were not being taken care of properly. In this dip, recession of the edge of the curb here, they had planted, I think it was 3 button bushes, maybe it was 2 button bushes and 9 bark, something along that line. But it was less than half a dozen shrubs and about half a dozen perennials. I think they were New England aster. There might have been multiple perennials, but still, it was 12 or less shrubs or perennials that were planted here, that whoever planted them knew they were wetland and native. So this was a good spot, in a recession to plant. But there was no weed barrier, there was no mulch, there was nothing to combat the weeds and aggressive non-native grass. So eventually it died. And I remember noticing while it was dying, and left a message with the librarian there, but of course nothing's really going to come from it. And then you look over here and look, obviously somebody cleaned up this area and used a lot of Roundup. Monsanto, the biggest enemy of the monarch butterfly, had a hand in this. It's kind of cute that there's a corn that survived the Roundup spraying, because corn, soybeans, wheat, A couple other have genetic patents. Monsanto Seeds Company does on that, so that's why that was able to survive the Roundup spray. But anyway, over here, it would have worked if maybe the people that put it in knew what they were doing, or maybe they didn't. If they did, then they didn't inform the caretakers of how to take care of it. But more likely, they just knew a little bit about the plants, threw it in, and just assumed everything would work. But of course, it didn't work. Now, this here, I didn't notice this before until right now. And right now, I'm noticing that this is one of the only 4 non-native shrubs that I plant that I don't think is a problem, and I would recommend. This is called Texas Scarlet Quince. It's not from Texas, it's actually from Japan or something like that, but it's a red blooming shrub that stays under 3 feet tall. Now, there's not a lot that stays under 3 feet tall. There's not a lot that has red flowers. There's not a lot that has deep root systems as if it would work in a prairie. But this is one of those. I planted them at the Court Street McDonald's, and I fell in love with them. It was really hot, and when I was installing the landscaping, and there was a couple fruits on it, really sour quinces, and I didn't have time to go get a drink, but I bit down in a couple of the fruits, and oh, did that quench my thirst. Oh, did it quench my thirst. And that really pleased me. Now, there are, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't Texas Scarlet Quince, because that one has some thorns on it. This one doesn't look like it has any thorns. Maybe it's a different variety. Maybe I need to investigate before I just assume on this one. I don't see any thorns. Crap, is this a thornless variety? Well, quince are usually yellow, orange, red, pink, and I like the Texas Scarlet Quince because it's red, and my favorite color of flower is red, even though that's not my favorite color. My favorite color is violet purple. My favorite color to wear is olive green, but my favorite color of flower is red, because it's the opposite of green. And bees can't see red. That's why there's not a lot of flowers, or at least native flowers that are red. Now this here, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing this is apple serviceberry. It's one of the serviceberries. The most common one is apple serviceberry, which is a hybrid between downy serviceberry and Allegheny serviceberry. Because it's trimmed to be a wide open shrub, I don't know for sure, because Allegheny serviceberry and downy serviceberry are both technically trees. The second most common than apple serviceberry that's planted is Saskatoon serviceberry, and that is a shrub, a western shrub. I think that one got established in the horticultural world because it can handle heavier soil, because usually serviceberries need better drainage. Well, the tree ones at least. Anyhow, it's doing okay here. There's probably some kind of problem here with these berries. You know, another name for serviceberry is Juneberry. Another name is shadbush. But if these matured properly, they would have been eaten by birds because birds love serviceberries. So that's odd. So there might be something wrong with this. I don't know because I wasn't here when it was blooming or went to fruit. But it shouldn't be dead like this. It should be empty spots where the fruits were, because the fruits should drop or be eaten right now. Oh, there's a butterfly there. What do we got here? What do we got here? Up. That looks like, you see that? Looks like a red spotted purple. Yep, there it goes. If buttonbush was still here, oh, this butterfly will love that, because buttonbush is a mid to late summer blooming flower that butterflies love. Okay, now here you got yews, and a lot of shade. Not native. It's just a foundation type plant. There's a lot of better ones, but because it buds out from the base, it's very easy to work with in the landscaping. And here, of course, scraggly trimmed. This is a dogwood, and you could tell it is a dogwood because of the bark. Now, I don't know for sure which type this is. Well, no, actually, there's some berries here a second ago. Those are white berries? Oh, yeah, it's white berries. Okay, white berries are which ones? Red Osher dogwood has, and then there's white, red, and blue berries. So yeah, this is probably Red Osher dogwood, but of course it's awfully trimmed. Look at that. They just trim the edge because they don't know about renewal pruning. All this dead wood needs to be taken out, and in general. See all the green branches? Those are the new ones. The greenish brown ones are, young and still thriving. The brown ones are close to the end of their time. And with any shrub, it is a conveyor belt with up and out, meaning they only serve temporarily. Unlike a tree where it's one trunk that gets wider over the years, a healthy shrub, will have new ones come out, old ones die back or get cut off or something like that, and to keep it vigorous. This is definitely not a vigorous shrub. But these are dogwoods, and this here is one of the three. There's 3 different species of airwood viburnums. Nice berries, but notice these little dots? That is a new disease that's spreading. European viburnum beetle. The P.T. McDonald's got that a couple years ago. I don't know how much of a huge negative impact that's going to have. We'll have to see how it comes about the next dogwood I would plant. As I plant the rough-leaf dogwood, which is a tree or a shrub, the pagoda dogwood, which is a tree, and the silky dogwood, which is a shrub, and that one has blueberries. I don't plant the red Osher dogwood, even though it's favored because it has more red stems like this, which probably what this is, even though this would be a pretty big red ester dogwood. I don't grow that because it's more of a northern plant that gets stressed from the late summer drought of the prairie region. Anyhow, back to this. This is one of the 3 types of airwood viburnum, probably the smooth airwood viburnum. This here is not. This here is the evil white mulberry that seeded up is growing within them. But no, and also the people trimming it, they're trimming it rounded. Rounded, it's going to look leggy because these leaves down here don't get enough sun. So that's the wrong way to trim it. If you want that shape, you got to thin it a little bit up here so light in some angle can get down there. So anyhow, the point of all of this was to show that there originally was an effort to get native plants here in a rain garden, so to speak. But they didn't take care of it, or they didn't know what they were doing. But buttonbush, New England aster, I'm pretty sure were planted here. There's some other things, maybe I don't remember too much because I didn't take a picture of it or write it down. But this is my first live video, so I don't know how this is going to come about. See that leaf? It's one of the lilacs. Looks like it was S. Meyer lilac shrub, but trimmed to be a multi-branch tree. That's all right. It doesn't spread, so I don't have a big problem with it being non-native. And it's good for windbreaks. Definitely has to have a lot of air circulation though. So powdery mildew it gets doesn't have that.